Hi guys, hi, how's it going? How y'all doing today? Hopefully today finds you well. Today I am doing the haul and retrospect for the purchases that I showcased in my October 2023 makeup rehab. This is the video that we are talking through today. I will link it up in the cards for you, but this is the thumbnail of the makeup rehab that we're going to talk through today. So this is me going through all the products that I hauled in last year at this time and talking you through my thoughts and opinions and feelings about those products today. This is really my version of monitoring my beauty purchases, and I enjoy doing this. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, please keep on watching. Yes, I know I'm in the same clothes, the same eye look, the same all the things that you saw me in Monday's video, but I'm running kind of behind, so I want to make sure that I get this out before the end of October, and that's where we're at. Usually I like to periodically place them throughout the month, but that hasn't worked out so good for me this month. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, please keep on watching. For those of you new here, hi, my name is Donna. I'm a lover of all things high-end colorful beauty and self-care. This is my self-care. I love to come out here, talk to you about the beautiful things in my life that I'm bringing in, I'm using up, I'm taking out of my collection. And I mean, talking about makeup brings me joy. So it soothes my soul, warms my heart. This is my self-care. That is why I'm here. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I hope that you find that you enjoy it and that you'll want to be a part of this tribe I have on my YouTube space, and you'll want to subscribe before you go. And if not, that's totally okay too, but it's totally free to you. So if you like it, subscribe. I would love to have you along for this ride, for this journey. With that said, let's roll into this haul in retrospect for everything that I hauled in last year at this time. I have several purchases that I made. I mean, I have a list, a very long list of items that I brought into my collection at this time. And I think that this looks a lot longer than the lists month over month over month that I've had throughout this entire year. Last year, I really tried to be mindful about the purchases that I made, so this just seems like a really long list. I do think that most of the things on this list are items that I bought for myself for my birthday. I don't even remember how many of these really counted for me in terms of points. I don't think any of it did, if I'm honest, because if this was my October makeup rehab, it was about the things that I purchased in September for myself, for my birthday. There's that. Let's jump in. So first and foremost, I have on here a replica fragrance mini in Beach Walk, which I think I still have. Hold on. I do. So this is the replica mini that I have in Beach Walk. Obviously, you can see I have not even used it. This is one of those it's not like a sprayer or anything like that. I do want to pick up some sprayers to decant this kind of stuff in. This really smells good. I don't know why I haven't used it yet. Maybe just because I don't typically use perfumes, but I do believe that this was my birthday gift from last year from Sephora, in addition to two little spritzers that are likely still in there that I'm just not going to go through all the little tiny sample spritzers that I have to find. But I also received Replica by the Fireplace and Replica Jazz Club in the little sample spritzers. So I still have those, haven't tried any of those. It was a birthday gift though, so it wasn't like anything that I'm super disappointed with myself in purchasing. As far as purchases go from Sephora, I do know I picked up this. This is the Fenty Beauty Hydra Reset Hand Mask. And I actually quite love this, but as you can see, I haven't used a lot of it. I don't know why. I forget to use hand lotions all the time. And this is also one of those that you kind of have to put on before you go to bed and put socks over your hands. So it's kind of a pain in the ass to utilize, to be honest. I need to maybe stick it in my bedroom instead of in here to utilize in that way, because otherwise I'm just not going to get any use out of it. But I really do love it. When I am using it, it really does make my hands look and feel so hydrated, so moisturized, and maybe even look like 10 years younger than what they currently, I mean, my hands look like old lady hands, and I'm not necessarily an old lady, but they are so dry, and that really does help. I also purchased the Milk Makeup Hydro Grip Eye Primer, which I'm going to have a picture of over here for you because I no longer have this. This is an eye primer that I purchased at, I believe, at the recommendation of one of you, and I hated it. I hated it so much. But then as soon as I started utilizing it and talking about how much I hated it, so many more of you were like, no, that is the worst. So I can't remember why I bought this eye primer, but it literally was the worst. And I ended up, prior to that year, putting this into my project pan and using it up entirely because A, there just wasn't very much product in it, number one, and number two, it was literally the worst eye primer. And it was so big and there was literally hardly anything in it. And it had this doe foot applicator you barely got anything off of, so I would take the doe foot out and have to like squeeze it. It was just kind of a mess. It wasn't a great eye primer, and I'm really happy it's no longer in my collection, but I did use this up entirely. So I'm not sure that I would say that that was an awful purchasing decision because I did use it up entirely. It was just a product that I did not love. The next things that I bought from Sephora were these three items here. So I do have like 2 of the Give Beauty blushes and 1 of the Give Beauty highlights. I did buy the blushes in Stars Aligned, which these are the Feeling Cheeky blushes, and also in Flirty Talk. So Flirty Talk is a little bit more of like a coral color story, and Stars Aligned is more of like a mauve color story. And these are like, if I had to pick 2 of my signature blush colors, these 2 like color families would be my 2 signature blush colors. I love a really mauve, almost neutral blush tone. So, and these blushes are really, really nice. I don't know necessarily, this one looks very similar, but they look very different on the cheeks. And I think for this one specifically, one is just a little bit more sheeny and one is a little bit more matte. I don't know if I feel the same way about this one, with one being sheeny, one being matte, but I do love this one specifically because these oranges are very, very far from each other. And I know that the lighting maybe doesn't showcase that a whole lot, but one is deeper and one is a little bit more like yellow toned. And I loved this one specifically for like layering blush in a way that just kind of contoured the face differently. I really love these blushes. I know that it doesn't look like I love these blushes, but they're pretty firmly packed in there and I do use them actually quite a bit. I've pulled for them multiple times since bringing them into my collection. And then the other one was the Check My Glow highlighter in the shade Platinum Cowgirl, and this is what it looks like. And this I actually quite love for the different tones of highlight that you can get from it. I do think that it is a beautiful highlighter when you like just swirl your brush in all together and put it on your face. But I also really liked taking a really pinpointed brush into it for like inner corner highlight or brow bone highlight as well when it was in my Shop My Stash and I was using it. If I'm honest with you, I'm not a huge like highlight wearer these days, but this is one of those highlights that is just like subtle enough that I actually would enjoy wearing this on a day to day. I'm not wearing a lot of highlight lately, which is, I mean, I think pretty much the going like consensus in the makeup space right now, like highlight is just not something that we're all wearing all the time anymore. And I don't really necessarily know why. And I actually think that that is all that I purchased from Sephora. So good purchases overall. I do use all of the Give Beauty products. I do use the Fenty product. I did use up the Milk Makeup Hydro Grip Eye Primer. All of those things, good purchases overall. I didn't like one of those items, but I did use it up entirely. So really happy to say that none of the purchases that I made from Sephora during that time frame were wasteful purchases. The rest of it came from either the brand's specific website or from Ulta Beauty. Now, you all know I work at Ulta, so I did get a discount in addition to the fact that I am also a diamond member, which means I get 2 times points for everything that I'm purchasing in the month of my birthday. So I tend to go stupid during the month of my birthday at Ulta Beauty. This year I didn't, though. This year I'm really proud of myself. So first things first, Natasha Denona had just come out with the I Need a Nude palette, and I did purchase this from Natasha or from Ulta, and I have a palette roulette on this, which I'll stick up in the cards for you guys, but this is my favorite Natasha Denona palette. And I think that if I were to maybe pull it out and use it now, I might feel better about it than I did initially when I reviewed it, but I am a color queen at the end of the day. So I knew that this maybe wasn't going to be my favorite palette from Natasha Denona. I also really like warms more than I like cools, and this leans very cool in my humble opinion. So I wasn't necessarily buying it for the sake of knowing I was going to love this palette. I was buying it for the sake of I am a Natasha Denona collector. I purchase every palette that she has put out there on the market, but also because I love that her pans come out of her palette. You can mix and match any way that you want to. And if I remember correctly, this is maybe the second palette of its nature where it's kind of got this like 3D effect to it. Maybe it was even the first one, I can't remember, but I knew that I would get use out of these shadows irregardless, so I was going to pick it up. Maybe not my favorite purchase, but it is a purchase that I have used and will continue to use nonetheless. The other thing that I picked up from Natasha Denona at that point in time was this eye crayon. She calls these the Macro Tech eye crayons. This is just an eyeliner, and it's in the shade Burgundy. And I wear a lot of shades that basically fall in line with this burgundy shade. It is very kind of like purpley. The one thing that I love about her eye pencils is that they pretty much do not budge. Once they are in place, they are in place. I do have, I think, 4 of her eye pencils. It's one of my favorite formulas for eye pencils. And then I did buy some things from Pat McGrath as well. Now, just for the reminder, this is when Pat McGrath and Natasha were fairly new to the Ulta lineup. And I bought Moonlit Seduction. Like, I love this eyeshadow palette. And this shade right here is so beautiful. And I had just such a really great time utilizing this eyeshadow palette. Again, I will put the palette roulette up in the cards for you, which is my palette review series in which I am reviewing all the palettes. I have obviously used this palette. I like this palette a lot. Pat McGrath isn't necessarily my favorite in terms of eyeshadows, but if I remember correctly, this palette was the first palette in a very long time that I felt like I finally got Pat McGrath and her formula in a way that I wasn't struggling with her palettes. I have in the past not really loved her mattes at all because I feel like they are hard to blend and hard to use. And maybe it's just, I think I said in this video too, maybe it's just that I was too new to try Pat McGrath in the past, but I tried Natasha around the same time and didn't struggle with Natasha as much as I struggled with Pat. But I did love that palette and still love that palette. I also purchased the under eye setting powder in medium. This is, as you can probably see, too dark for my under eyes. I tried to use it on my under eyes. I hated it on my under eyes, so I started using this one as a full face powder, and I do like it as a full face powder. I also went back and purchased the light version for my under eyes because I absolutely loved that powder. Now this one probably sees a whole lot more use. You can see that that dome there is kind of flattened out because I do use it quite a bit. And I use that one with like a puff versus a brush. So it is flattening out. I use it all the time. I didn't put any on today, but it is so blurring on the under eyes and I just love it so much. It's such a beautiful powder. And then the last thing that I purchased from Ulta from Pat McGrath was the Divine Bronze in the shade Nude Honey. And this very, very quickly became my favorite bronzer of life. Like, I used this and used this and used this to the point where the imprint is really worn off. I had to put it away. I had to stop myself from using it because I love it so much. It's just the perfect shade of bronzer for me, and I didn't think it was going to be, but it is such a beautiful, like, neutral bronzy color. It just makes my skin look super sun-kissed and naturally sun-kissed. I love it so much. I also got the Smashbox Smooth and Blur primer, which I'll stick a picture in here of. That is a primer that I don't 100% love. I did give that primer to my mom. That was my birthday gift from Ulta Beauty. That was full size. That's for everyone, not just because I work there. This was my birthday gift from Sephora. I gave that to my mom. It's not a product that I like. They almost never have something that I 100% love as a part of their gifting strategy, but that's okay. I mean, they're full-size items, y'all. Full size. I did purchase the BeautyCounter Chai Cream Blush. I had purchased this before I really knew that BeautyCounter was somehow an MLM being sold in Ulta. Like, how did that even happen? This is the Cheeky Clean Cream Blush, and it is in the shade Chai, and it is a really beautiful cream blush that is really just kind of natural on my skin tone. It looks really peachy there in the swatch, but it is such a beautiful blush, and I'm really happy to have it. But I'll tell you, if I had known that it was an MLM when I purchased that, I probably wouldn't have purchased it. And I don't know how an MLM ended up in Ulta Beauty, to be honest. I think all of our locations, they are typically on the NOP section now, so which is not on Plano. So I don't know what's going on with that. But I also purchased a couple of Bare Minerals products. So I purchased the Gen Nude Bronzer in the shade Kiss of Mauve, which, again, it just sits really nicely in that sweet spot of blush tones for me. And I really do love the bronzer formula. I think that they're really super pigmented, but they blend out really nicely and kind of sheer out really nicely. I also picked up the Gen Nude Highlighting Blush in the shade Opal Glow. There is no way that this was going to be a blush on me, but I was enamored by it. It is so pretty. Look at just how glowy that is. I think this was coming out right about the same time as the Uber Glowy blush was, right? But I don't love uber glowy blushes. I do like a glowy blush these days. I just don't like a highlight that is being called a blush. So that lives in my highlighting drawer. I have used it. I don't know if you guys can tell, but it has been pretty used. That imprinting is going away. Now the Kiss of Mauve blush has been used far less. That imprint is still loud and proud in there. I have used it probably 3 or 4 times, but not much more than that. But again, it is a blush that I love in my collection, that I will hold on to, and that I can't see myself getting rid of at any point in time, to be honest. I also got a FanFest mascara from Benefit because we had just tried this. It was a recent launch. We had just tried it. I got one for free and gratis, and then needed to buy another mascara because that one was then gone. And I love this mascara. I think that this is very polarizing. People either love it or hate it, but I think this is probably my 4th FanFest mascara. Now, I doctor my mascaras. I usually have 3 or 4 open at a time. This one isn't open right now, but it is one in my drawer ready to be opened when I'm ready to use it. But FanFest is like my favorite, hands down. Really close second in line would be Bad Gal Bang, which I just realized I'm not wearing mascara today. What is wrong with me? You know what's funny is I was just watching my friend Erin's. She just did a video, and I was going to put blue mascara on today, and I totally freaking forgot. But she was like, oh my God, I just realized I'm not wearing mascara. Playing with this made me realize I'm not wearing mascara today. Oh well, I don't care. Whatever. Whatever. And then at Ulta, we did a volunteer situation where we went in and did like Dress for Success for military wives, and we got a goodie bag, and in that goodie bag I got a single Mary Kay eyeshadow, which I cannot for the life of me find at all. And then we also got a Mary Kay lipstick. These were, I think, the only like makeup products that we got. This is the lipstick, and I love the shade of this, but as you guys can see, I have not used this. I just don't wear lipsticks all that often. I need to pull this out and get some use out of it. I need to pull a lot of my lipsticks out and get some use out of it, but this hasn't been used. But again, not something that I paid for. I also purchased at that time the Lancome Art Liner Liquid Liner because I had showcased it for a guest, put some of it on my hand as like a demo on how to use it. And then when I was done with the guest, I went to go take it off, and it literally would not come off my hand. It was on my hand for probably 12 hours before I was able to get it off. And I used makeup remover. I used micellar water. I even used the remover that like our benefit arch experts use when they're doing people's brows. Like I used some makeup removers and it just wasn't coming off. So I bought one and I liked it. I used it up. It no longer is in my collection, but this is what it looks like, and it was fantastic. I think it comes in 3 different shades, and I would probably purchase another one, but I've got a ton of liquid liners right now at my disposal that I'd like to work through because they're just not something that I think to purchase, right? And these were coming in like beauty bags, or they come in gratis an awful lot. So I have a ton of liquid liners I need to get through first before I buy another one, but I would definitely buy one of those. I also at that time purchased a tool from Ulta Beauty. This is the Happy Skin Gen 2 IPL hair remover handset. And as you guys can see, it is still sealed. I haven't even opened this up. Why? Because I'm afraid. I think I said that in the video where I showed this. I buy all these tools because I think that they're amazing and I want to use them, and I am excited to use them. And then I get them home and I'm terrified. I don't want to ruin my skin. I don't want to ruin my hair. I don't want to ruin my face. I don't want to ruin whatever, and I'm terrified to use it. So I haven't even opened that up. I'm interested in using it. Have you used it? If you have, please let me know how you feel about it. In this haul, I wanted to purchase a bunch of stuff that I could use in a affordable, get ready with me, all affordable makeup video. So I purchased a bunch of drugstore items, which if you're familiar with my channel, you know I don't have very much drugstore items in my collection. So I got a full face, and I did end up getting this, which is the e.l.f. Halo Glow Liquid Filter. I use it as a primer because I think that that's how it's used best, honestly, and there's so much of it I couldn't even imagine using it only for a liquid illuminator. Mine's in the shade medium 3. I do think that I probably could have gotten it in a lighter and cooler shade. This is a product that when I put it on, it has the audacity to turn me orange if I don't use it right. And I think that you will see that in just the swatch, right? I like to use it under a cooler or more neutral foundation. And I do have to make sure that I'm using a more neutral foundation, or it tends to, again, turn me orange. It does have a really nice glow to it. I just think it works better as a primer than it does as a highlighter, because for me specifically anyways, because I just don't really 100% go after a liquid highlighter. I have a ton of them in my collection, but never pull from them for them. So I did put that into my primer drawer. That's where it sits, and I do use it occasionally, especially when I think that my skin is looking a little bit tired and dull. I also got a foundation. I ended up getting the ColourPop Pretty Fresh foundation in the shade Light 60N, which is a neutral shade. I do think that this is a really beautiful foundation. I love the way it looks on my skin. It is really liquidy. So it goes onto the skin and doesn't feel heavy at all. I do think that this is a pretty perfect like shade match to me. You guys can see it almost pretty much blends in with my hand. I also really like it over the top of that e.l.f. because the e.l.f. is a lot glowy, whereas the Pretty Fresh foundation is not super glowy. It's more of it's a hydrating foundation, but it's not dewy. It does have a lot of like mattifying tendency to it. I do think that over the Halo Glow though, it isn't necessarily as neutral or cool leaning as I need it to be to accommodate for the fact that this is so warm. But it is a beautiful foundation. That said, I will wear this without the Halo Glow. It's a beautiful foundation on its own over the top of any primer. And this is also a really beautiful primer on its own or with a really nice cool tone or neutral foundation over the top of it. So it doesn't do anything to be problematic with the rest of the products that I'm putting on my skin. I bought this, which is the number 7 Lift and Illuminate Triple Action Pressed Powder. This is in the shade Light. I do think that this is maybe just a smidge bit too light for my skin. It does have a little bit of a white cast to it. I think that that is because of the shade that I picked up, not necessarily because of the product itself. I do not think that this is fantastic on my under eyes, and I do think that this was supposedly a dupe for the Charlotte Tilbury Airless Flawless Finishing Powder, if I remember correctly. But I don't think that it is anywhere near the Charlotte Tilbury Airless Flawless Finishing Powder. It's one of my favorite pressed powders, hands down, and I would repurchase it over and over again if I didn't have so many powders in my collection, and powder is just not something that I pull for very often. I do think it's pretty. I will wear it, but I like to wear it in my, T-zone areas because it is such a light shade. I think it is better for the brightening areas of my face than it is the rest of my face, but I don't love it on my under eyes. So that's kind of problematic. I mean, it's a good powder. It's just not my favorite powder. I also bought a bronzer, and I bought this one from Revolution Beauty. It is the Ultra Cream Bronzer. And I accidentally picked mine up in the shade Deep, and I think that you will see that it is really, really deep. But this bronzer reminds me a lot of the NARS Laguna bronzers in that even though this is so deep, like I feel like it's just perfect for blending out and shearing out, and just regardless of shade, looks really beautiful on my light to medium skin tone. And I was actually pretty shocked by this. I used this and a Revolution Beauty like 9-pan eyeshadow palette. And Revolution Beauty is not typically a product line or a cosmetics company that I'm ever looking twice at. I never side-eye it. I never care about what they're launching or anything like that. But this is a product that so many people were talking about that when we did this whole thought process around a, drugstore get ready with me, I had to pick this up and see if it was all the hype. Typically, when I purchase anything from Revolution Beauty, they are not products that ever last in my collection, and I'm honestly sometimes pretty pissed off at myself for picking them up, but I love this bronzer. It's one of those bronzers that I think of fondly when I think of going into my collection and picking out a different like cream bronzer. I want to reach for this bronzer. All of my cream bronzers have not seen a whole lot of action this year because I've been trying to work through the Makeup by Mario Sculpt Stick in my project pan, but this is a bronzer that I love pulling for. I also kept that 9-pan eyeshadow palette that I got in gratis months prior to this video. So it isn't in here, but it's also kind of a really nice eyeshadow palette as well. It was a dupe for, I think, a Huda Beauty 9-pan eyeshadow palette. So I really liked it. I did pick up 2 blushes as well. I did pick up this one from ColourPop. This is a ColourPop blush stick in the shade Cool It. And I think if you look in there, you can see just how much I've used of this. I still have quite a bit of this left, but it is just a beautiful blush. And I had to force myself to put this away, much like this guy here. I had to force myself to put this away. So I could use other things in my collection. This is beautiful. I love this so much, and it sits right in there in that like sweet spot of mauve tone blushes that I really like, only maybe a little bit lighter than some of the, you know, other mauve tone blushes that I have. I also picked up this Juvia's Place Volume 1 Blushed Duo, and this one I have to say is probably the first like dud in this whole thing. I don't mind the blushes, honestly, but I just used them in that video and didn't feel wowed enough by them that I've picked them up since then. I do love a really nice orange blush, but I have a ton of orange blushes in my collection that I would rather pull for first. And this berry one is slightly too dark. I don't 100% think it looks fantastic on my skin because it just comes out like really red. That said, I do like it. I think that I will continue to hold on to it, but if I'm really looking at my purchases and saying which of these were bad purchases, this would probably be one of those that I picked as a bad purchase. And then I also have two lip products. One is the Milani Color Statement lip liner, and this one is in the shade All Natural, and it is just a kind of like a brownie nude shade, which I really truly love. I think that this competes a lot with, like, I have one from Wayne Goss that's very similar. I have a Charlotte Tilbury one that's very similar. It competes with a lot in my lip liner collection, but I do like it, and I love that it's a sharpenable pencil so that I can get a nice crisp point on there. And then I also picked up the Maybelline Lifter Gloss in the shade Moon, which I think is really pretty, but I also didn't 100% love it because I think I got a shade that is just slightly warmer than what I like to wear. And that is it right there. It looks really good with the lip liner though. So, I mean, I just need to pull it back out. I do think it's a really great lip gloss formula. Not too sticky. Doesn't cause like strindles in between your lips when you're talking. It's a really beautiful gloss formula. So I wish I would have picked a cooler version of that lip gloss, which is funny to me because I really do like more like eyeshadows, but everything else I put on my face, I really like to be leaning a lot more cool. I got some triangle puffs. They're these guys here. I got like 6 of them. I love these. This is what I put my powder on with, and I'm so happy to have those in my collection. I also picked up some AOA sponges. They're labeled as the dupe of the Beauty Blender. I have to be honest with you, I haven't tried those at all yet because I still have a ton of sponges in my collection. And I also picked up these 2 yellow sponges. This one is not one of the 2 that I picked up that came in a duo. Those 2 have been discarded, and I've picked because I typically will get rid of my sponges if they are old and crusty. This one is one of a new duo that I picked up because I did discard the other ones. So these are always products that are going to get some use in my collection, even though I've not opened up that AOA Paw Paw sponge set. I know that those are going to get use in my collection. I went through a period of time where I was using just brushes, so my sponges weren't getting the action, which is probably why the Paw Paw sponges haven't been opened up yet. And then I also purchased from Odens the Angelica Nyquist Helaween collab with the Little Ghost palette and the Trick or Treat palette. I have a palette roulette on these 2 palettes. I really honestly quite love both of these palettes, from the artwork of the palette to the color stories inside of each of these palettes. I would say that I did think that the Little Ghost palette was going to be my favorite because it's a little more out there in your face as far as the color story goes. But I honestly enjoyed the Trick or Treat palette just a little bit more than the Little Ghost palette. I do think that they're both beautiful palettes though, and would recommend them to anybody who would be asking about these palettes, but I don't think that they're for sale anymore. They were, you know, a limited edition collaboration with Odens and Angelica, so there's that. And then last but not least, I also decided that I wanted to experience, I typically choose like some new brands to try every year. Sometimes it's like, usually it's 2 or 3 brands. This year I think it's like 5 brands, but I picked Adept last year as one of the brands that I really wanted to get to know and try. So I did pick up the NinHydrin palette, and I picked up the Plain Jane remastered palette. And this one is the NinHydrin, which I really thought was so pretty, and I really, really wanted to try it. And I love this palette, but this palette did, I have my one eye that's really super sensitive, more sensitive than the other one, if I'm honest with you. I did have some issues with sensitivity when I was utilizing this palette. Not that I won't use it ever again, but I don't know why I struggled with sensitivity with this palette, because I didn't with the Plain Jane palette, but I did with that one. I love that palette. It's a beautiful palette. And honestly, the 2 mattes in this palette, which are this like kind of army green color and this like kind of like gray toned purple shade, are pretty perfect for all the shadows that are in this. I did have a compensatory palette in the palette roulette with this palette that I thought I would use more than I ended up using, because those 2 mattes in that palette just really go perfectly with them. I do love the palette. I will keep it, but I do know that I struggled a bit with sensitivity of my eyes with that palette. Now, the Plain Jane one was a completely different story. Like, I didn't struggle at all as far as sensitivity goes with any of these palettes, or any of these shadows. I do have to say that these shadows are very much like, if you go too hard in these shadows, you're going to get clear down to the bottom of the pan. They're very, very soft eyeshadows, and I think because of that, they're just a little bit more like piecey and flaky and chunky than a lot of the other shadows that you might find in like mainstream, you know, shimmers or even duochromes. But my God, the looks that I was able to create with these palettes were so pretty, and I couldn't be happier that I have them in my collection. I will likely purchase again from Adept. I'm just trying out some fresh, fun, new indie eyeshadow brands that I also want to bring into my collection this year. So I haven't purchased anything else from Adept right now, but I want to. I think, honestly, I'm kind of over Odens Eye. This is now my like 4th and 5th palette in my Odens Eye collection. They really haven't come out with anything else that piques my interest, but man, these guys, Adept has come out with probably 4 different palettes that I really want to get in my collection since I purchased those ones. I forgot to say that there was also a Maybelline concealer that I picked up with that full face of makeup from the drugstore that I picked up for that Get Ready With Me. I found that I truly loved that concealer, and I used it all up through my project pan this year. It's a beautiful concealer. It is the Maybelline Concealer Instant Age Rewind with the puffball at the top. Hated the puffball. Love that concealer. So it will likely be a concealer I would purchase again. And I also picked up a telescopic lift mascara from L'Oreal for that full face of drugstore, and hated that mascara, but I used it up. So I would say, of the things that I did purchase that were maybe not smart purchasing decisions, that Milk Makeup Hydro Grip Eye Primer, I used all the way up, so it's not a declutter. None of it got decluttered, but I really hated that eye primer. The L'Oreal Telescopic Lift Mascara was not a great mascara. So maybe an awful purchase, an awful purchasing decision. This just hasn't been used since, because I have other blushes in the same tone of that orange that I want to pull for first, and that berry one is just a little bit too deep for my skin tone. And then of course this, which is still unopened, and that is a spendy little machine. So that was a mistake. The rest of it can be kind of like shuffled away into not a bad purchasing decision because I used them all up or still will use, but this was definitely not smart. I knew I would be terrified to use it. I said it in the video in which I brought it into my collection. So there's that. With that said, I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think about the products that I brought into my collection this time last year. I would be interested to hear about the items that you've used that I showcased today, or items that you would love to use that I showcased today, or items that you didn't love that I showcased today. I would be interested to hear from you down in the comment section. I love having our conversations down there, so don't forget to hit a girl up. Thank you guys so much for being here today. I hope that you and yours are well. I hope that you are all safe and healthy and getting along as best that you can. I hope that you are all loving each other, being kind humans, and living your best life. And until next time, bye friends.